And good evening. We're live. Welcome to the Smart Elections Election Protection Forum. I'm Lulu Freistadt. I'm the Executive Director of Smart Elections. And with me here,
I am Election Commissioner Benny Smith, and I'm also a technical advisor and auditioning for the role of White House correspondent for Smart Legislator.
You're not auditioning anymore. We gave you.
I'm in Washington D.C.
The Smart Elections. The Smart Elections.
I'm in D.C. I'm trying to get in the vibe.
You are our Washington correspondent, Benny.
All right, I'm still auditioning though.
No.
Kill my vibe. I'm still auditioning.
You're on it. You got it.
All right.
Good evening, everybody. It's really, really great to have you here. We have a packed forum. There is so much information that we want to get to you this evening. And so we are going to jump right in. As you can see, we have a banner that tells you we're Smart Elections, and what is our focus? It is election protection, definitely. If you want to find out more about us, you're going to go to smartelections.us. That is our website. And if you want to email us, it's contact@smartelections.us. And we love to hear from you. We love to hear the wonderful things that you experience here on the forum. If you're learning or excited about the way that we're presenting information, trying to make it really user-friendly and accessible, or if you have requests, things that you want changed, please let us know. Contact@smartelections.us. We love to hear from you. And you can see that Benny and I both have Twitter handles, so you can follow us on Twitter, and we'll give you more information about, how to get in touch with us and the social media channels where we are later in the show. We would love to have you sign up for our mailing list so that we can stay in touch with you and let you know all the great stuff that's going on. And the way you do that, again, is on our website at smartelections.us. And I can even put that, I think, into the chat so you can just click on it, super easy, and get in there. And look, we already have some comments in the chat, so we know that someone's here. Anyone specifically working on Suffolk County, New York election integrity? I will tell you, we do have a smart legislation working group in New York that is focused on New York state legislation, and we would love to have you come to that. And the best thing to do is to sign up, and I will put the where you go to sign up for that. It's a Zoom meeting, and it's free, of course. And we meet every Friday at noon, and we've been tremendously productive. Such a great group of people. Mark Shaw is here. Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us. And this is what I'm putting in the chat right now. It is the Friday New York working group, and we are working specifically on legislation, and we do that through our sister organization, which is called Smart Legislation, and that meets every Friday at noon, and that's Eastern time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, and
I'm trying to be a White House correspondent.
You need to give it a rest now, Benny. I hope you're not going to just keep repeating that throughout the show as though we haven't already hired you.
I'm going somewhere with it.
Okay. So you have there the link if you want to join us on Friday, and that is New York specific. And that was in response to Royal, one of our listeners here who asked about a New York working group. So go ahead and join us in New York. Mark Shaw is part of that group in New York. So what tonight's forum is about is when do voting machines count wrong, part 2. And we did do a part 1 2 weeks ago, and we covered some really in-depth material, and we got some kind of feedback that it was kind of in the weeds. It was a little too specific for some people. We really went in depth, in particular in 2 elections, Antrim County, Michigan, where I think we managed to change even Benny's idea about what happened there.
We did.
And we really showed how the ballot got changed, an additional line got added to the ballot, and it moved down every single other candidate on the ballot. And so all of the candidates after that were counted incorrectly. And we got some feedback also. So we got some feedback that people were a little overwhelmed, kind of like a lot of detail. So we're going to do much broader strokes this time. We're going to kind of go through and just show you a lot of different things that can go wrong. And one of the reasons that we're going to do that is because we also got an email from a viewer who said, you know, okay, so yeah, this happens once in a while. Yeah, so some election officials made a mistake and they inserted some text where they shouldn't have. But overall, I don't really see how this could possibly affect most elections. And what we're here to tell you tonight is that election after election, cycle after cycle, from the federal elections to the local elections, from the high stakes elections for president to the local elections, we see mistakes and even attempts at hacking in the actual elections. And so, no, we don't think this is just like something that happens occasionally. If it was, we wouldn't be here devoting every moment of our lives to trying to remedy the situation. We're here because we're concerned. And
Yeah,
we want
also the United States wouldn't be so cynical. There's not a large group of people who trust the outcomes of elections, so it's kind of an idea whose time has come.
right, that we should have accurate elections and that they should be provably accurate, that there should be evidence showing that the election results are what they are reported to be, and that the public has ways to verify that audits are done and that they're public and transparent, and that there's really strong chain of custody, all the things that we want to be in place in order to have confidence in the elections. And just like in terms of what Benny was saying about how we don't really have that currently, I'll just show you one of the websites where we aggregate some of the data that we put together. Has a couple polls on it that show how problematic public confidence is. So this is our website called countthevote.info, and we have information there from a number of elections that we've looked at. And I'm just going to call your attention to these two studies in 2019. In a 2019 C-SPAN poll, only 50% of Americans said they believed the election would be conducted openly and fairly. That's half of Americans saying that they don't believe the elections are going to be conducted openly and fairly. That's a pretty low bar there of people having confidence. And then after the 2020 election, it was actually worse. In a survey, 70% of Republicans said they don't believe the 2020 election was free and fair. So those are problematic numbers. And one of the reasons why we have those polls showing such low confidence is because of the type of incidents that we're going to talk about tonight. So the first one that I want to talk about is an actual known hack, because people often say, well, has this ever happened? Do we actually know? Have there been actual election hacks? And this is not well known, but in 1994, in South Africa, in the first election where Nelson Mandela became the leader of South Africa, there actually was a documented hack on that election. And I'll show you some information about that. This is an article from the BBC that I'm going to share with you. And it talks about a book that came out from an author, Peter Harris. And let's see, it's hard for me to talk and share at the same time. Let's see. Okay, I need to share. And we're going to share this BBC article. Okay, now you should be seeing that. And that's our the title of the article there, book says hacker tried to stop Mandela coming to power. So now this was in 1994 in South Africa. And the author of this book, Peter Harris, documents how he was working in the election commission there in South Africa. And what he said is that the hacker got into what was thought to be an impregnable system. And I'm going to try to I think you can see that pretty well, but I think I can also blow it up a little bit more. Let me try to blow that up, because I'm going to be showing you a lot of websites tonight, and I just want to make sure that you can see what we're talking about. Yeah, that's bigger now. And actually, we can even go bigger, so I can get used to how big we can be. Yeah, you can read that. So the hacker got into what was thought to be an impregnable system. And this is known. This isn't speculation. They documented this. And what the hacker tried to do was to add votes to certain races and take them away from Mandela. And they talk about what actually was done. The electronic count was compromised by a hacker who went in and multiplied the vote. The electronic count was then closed down. It stopped. That's when the results stopped going to South Africa and the rest of the world. And what the hacker did was they boosted the votes of 3 right-wing parties and shaved off votes of the ANC's tally. That the ANC was the party that that Nelson Mandela was running under. And so what they had to do was go back and find the ballots. They had been trying to count this electronically, and they went down, and they call it a secret manual system that saved the day. And you know, what is that secret manual system? Those are paper ballots.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about all the time. Paper ballots are what allowed them to overcome this known hack in 1994 South Africa. And it took a little bit longer. They suspended the announcement of the results for 2 days, and the manual count, it was running 2 days behind the electronic count. So it was slower, but just 2 days. And it did make people apprehensive. Many in the ANC feared that the delay was because the vote was being rigged against them. Not so, says Peter Harris. The ultimate result was true and fair. And so they were able to defeat that hack by using paper ballots. And that's, we use a word sometimes in the election security movement, that resilient. We talk about resilient elections. And that's what that is addressing, is when you have a known problem and you can move back from the totals that the voting machine has given you to a paper ballot system, and then get what you have confidence in is an accurate total. Had you heard about this hack prior to this, Benny?
Yeah, I had.
Anything that you want to add to that?
You know, it's the same. It's the same pattern. You have there are a few ways to do it, but everybody is fully aware that you got to add some votes somewhere and take some votes from somewhere else. So the mathematical method of achieving that, and the deviance and the method of executing that, is going to just vary from person to person. And that's the reason why we want something that, if that does happen, that we have something that's just provable, fact-based, and that is always going to be the handmark paper ballot.
And apparently they caught this because they were paying attention, and somebody on the election commission noticed that there was some sort of weirdness in the count, and they stopped it. So that also is about vigilance and, you know, really paying attention to details. And you're going to see a lot of weird stuff that has happened electronically as we go through these. So the next one I want to talk about is, that was 1994. We're going to go now to 2000, to the presidential election in Florida. And in particular, we're going to talk about Volusia County. This is kind of an infamous one. Yeah. And what I'm going to, also, I'll put some links into the chat. So I'll try to just keep putting these articles into the chat, so that if people want to go back and do more research later on these, they'll be able to do that. And I see Gene DeFore, were they paper ballots marked by hand or BMD ballots? Gene, I don't know for sure.
But 94, they definitely weren't BMDs. I mean,
most likely not.
The age of the internet area. So
the BBC article, I'm going to throw that in there. And I'm also going to actually put the link to the book. So Gene, that's your new assignment, is to read this book. It looks fascinating. It's called Birth by Peter Harris. And you can come on and report back to us about the details in her spare time, because I know Gene DeFore is very, very busy down there protecting the elections in Georgia. So this is Birth, and it's by Peter Harris, and that's the 1994 book on South African hack. And it has a lot of other information in it too, I understand, about just how tense that election was. So if I forget, please keep reminding me, and I'll keep trying to put these links into the chat. So we're going to talk now about Volusia County. And what happened in Volusia County, this is in 2000, Florida, just bizarre. And I'll put this into the chat. This is the link for a Snopes article that's actually pretty good. There was a glitch. They always call these glitches.
Yeah, right.
And over 16,000 votes were deleted from Al Gore's totals. And there were a few other weird things that happened also in Volusia County, but this was the worst of it. So let me see if you're, yeah, this is still pretty big. I can probably blow it up a little bit more. So this is from a Washington Post article. Something very strange happened on election night to Deborah Tannenbaum, a Democratic Party official in Volusia County. At 10 p.m., she called the county elections department and learned that Al Gore was leading George W. Bush 83,000 votes to 62,000. So Al Gore is 20,000 up. But when she checked the county's website for an update half an hour later, she found a startling development. Gore's count had dropped by 16,000 votes, while an obscure socialist candidate had picked up 10,000, all because of a single precinct with only 600 voters. And this is like a really, really weird incident that happened. And basically what happened, and this is from Bev Harris's Black Box Voting, and Benny's done a lot of work with Bev.
Yeah, shout out to Susan Pinshine, because she's in Volusia County, and she was probably one of the main experts about this.
Yeah, and one of the things that is the worst things about it is that Al Gore actually conceded the election based on this weird glitch. And so it's pretty complicated, but I'm going to summarize what this article says, which is that basically a memory card uploaded the regular results, and then another memory card uploaded different results, and those results took 16,000 votes away from Al Gore. They distributed them to some different candidates. And let me see if I can find the exact description of the actual numbers. And again, this goes back to Benny's point, which is that the numbers all have to add up, right? So you can't just take votes away. You have to add them somewhere else. In this case, they added 10,000 votes to this obscure socialist candidate and made a few other adjustments. And so there were 16,022 votes that came out of Gore. Meanwhile, over in Brevard County, another error also involving global election systems, which was another system in use at the time, is responsible for a further 4,000 votes being lopped off the Gore total. And what they said in this article is that the first memory card uploads the accurate results. Then another memory card came in and uploaded the changed results. And then they found that and they went back to the first memory card and uploaded the correct results again. And the implication of the article is that this is not that the memory cards were corrupt. And the reason why they say that is because if the memory cards were corrupt, it would have just uploaded gobbledygook. But it didn't upload gobbledygook. It uploaded a very specific count that was very different from the original count.
Weren't there negative votes?
Yeah.
Negative votes. That's what decreased the total.
Yeah, it took 16,000 votes away from Al Gore and caused him to concede temporarily. And then he called back Bush and said, actually, I'm not conceding. And that's how we got into the 2000 recount. But the implication of the article is that there's no way this is a glitch, that this was most likely deliberate, because a glitch, like if the memory card was actually corrupted, it wouldn't have provided the new information. It would have just been nonsense. Would you agree with that, Benny?
Yeah, a glitch would keep repeating the same thing.
Right, you would have some sort of just error message, not successfully reducing a candidate's totals. So I believe I put that link into the chat if people want to read more about that. And there was actually another weird thing that I found when I was researching Volusia County, and this one is just really strange. I actually have never heard this particular type of issue, but this also came up in the Florida 2000 race, and I believe this was Volusia County also. In another, this is the New York Times now covering the 2000 race. In another twist, on Sunday evening, the canvassing board stumbled across 320 ballots that had been unrecorded by a voting machine at a polling station in the town of DeBary. The machine had apparently shut down early on the morning of election day. By the time it turned itself back on, it had effectively forgotten about the first 320 votes cast. So that's just like a machine turning itself on and off and basically losing votes.
As Alzheimer's.
So there's another one from 2000 for you. And I'll go ahead, and that's a New York Times article about Volusia County. And I'm going to just keep it moving here because we have quite a few more to get to. So this is Volusia County, 2000, Florida. So the next thing that I want to talk about is 2004, and this is in Ohio. And one thing I want to point out is that, like, for example, in the 2000 race, that particular either glitch or hack, that was against the Democrats. And we're going to look at 2004, where it also looked like the machine glitch or hack went against the Democrats. So this idea that is currently in the zeitgeist right now, that Republicans are always the ones who are getting, you know, I don't like to use bad language, but who are getting the short end of the stick from, you know, voting machines. That is the sentiment in this particular election. But in previous elections, it has been the Democrats who felt that they were getting the short end of the stick from the voting machines. So the best is to try as hard as you can. It's very hard. All of us have partisan leanings and we have candidates that we prefer, but we want to try not to get too attached to the idea that the voting machines are always working in favor of one candidate or another. Voting machines are just computers. They can be programmed to do pretty much anything you tell them to. And do you want to sort of add into that theme, Benny?
Yeah, it's a little bit more political theory to it. Anybody who has an incentive to remain in power is in the position to use the machines as they would benefit them to stay in power. So it depends on where you are. There are over 6,000 jurisdictions, and people cheat in any other sport. Politics is a blood sport, so you can look at the people who are running the elections there, and they're the persons that you should want some transparency from.
Right. And we're not saying that all election officials are corrupt or that they're cheating. That is not what we're saying at all. There are many election officials who are honest and hardworking and try very, very hard to get accurate results.
It just varies by party. So you have to look at a certain county and whatever that party is. If there are like a million lawsuits, then those are people that need some transparency there.
Right. And even within a political party, there may be people who are honestly trying to, you know, produce good election results, and other people who are working, you know, to put their finger on the scale in some way. And also, go ahead.
I'm glad you made that point. Like the people who are running elections are probably the least likely to do something nefarious, right? It's going to be like some middleman or some party boss. If you just think about it the right way, they're not going to be a lot of, I wouldn't say low level people, but people that touch it over and over to be the operatives that are doing something that is bad. So I would say mostly all of the people who are, you know, work in the election, they're our friends and neighbors, right? So they're civic minded people, and they're probably out there just doing their jobs. But because there are so many lapses in the policies and the way elections are regulated, and the machines are not really secure, it just leaves a lot of room for a lot of things to go wrong really fast.
I think that's a fair statement. So we're going to look at 2004, and I'm going to play you a variety of clips on 2004. And I think this is really fascinating. We're going to start with a clip from a film from that time by Dorothy Fadiman, a wonderful filmmaker who actually was nominated for an Oscar for one of her films and also won an Emmy. And she made this film about the election in 2004 in Ohio. And I think what's interesting, you'll see in this a lot of kind of the real old timers. They were like people who have been fighting election.
Bob Petrakis.
Bob Petrakis is in it,
Yeah.
and Harvey Wasserman is
Harvey
in it.
Wasserman, yeah.
The old crew.
Yeah.
And there's a whole kind of new generation of activists who are fighting now, and Harvey and Bob are still, fighting for secure, accurate elections, still in the fray. But I think it's interesting to see when you watch this clip. I think it's going to kind of just give you a Time Lord feeling, because the language that it's talking about, it sounds like a film that would be made by Republicans now. But this was the Democrats in 2004, and they were just livid and suspicious and frustrated. So let me see if I can play this for you, this clip. I'm going to do my best. And I do, let's see, let's get it full screen and make sure that we're going to get you audio. Sometimes I forget to share the audio, and that's not good. Okay, so here we go. Share the audio. And this is about a 10-minute clip, and then we're going to play some other clips about 2004, and I think you're going to find it pretty interesting. I did.
Until recently, most Americans have assumed that our elections are basically honest. But with each election, more and more people are reporting incidents of voter suppression and irregular tallies. As anomalies continue to be uncovered, people realize that voting problems, which had seemed in the past to affect only a few states, could be happening nationwide. In the early morning hours of the 2004 election, reporters were closely monitoring vote totals in the last states to be called.
Judy Woodruff, help our viewers understand why we're now going back from the too close to call green column to the white column, in which we don't have enough information yet to make any projection.
Well, we're trying to figure all this out right now, Wolf. Apparently what has happened is that the Associated Press, they were feeding numbers into us, and then suddenly those numbers changed. First of all, we want to find out what happened. What I'm telling you is that the numbers changed, and sometimes these things happen.
It's simply impossible to validate what happens inside certain electronic voting and counting machines.
So one of the ways of checking what's actually happening in this sort of black box vote counting system, where it's faith-based voting and you don't know really what's happening, would be exit polling.
Person comes out of the poll, and there's somebody there, and they say, could we interview you? Mm-hmm. And what they do is they give them a ballot, basically, and they fill it in.
Exit polls are powerful when done right, because they tell us the demographics of voting, the attitudes of voting. That's the stuff that we really come to depend on.
For the 2004 election, a consortium of broadcast networks hired a polling firm, Edison Mitofsky.
There are safeguards in place now. We will be much more careful, we know, as we go throughout the evening tonight, in part because the software is better, the computers are better, and also the analysis will be better.
During the day, early exit poll data was leaked to the public and published on the internet. The leaked data revealed that in critical states, Kerry was ahead in the exit polls in 10 of the 12 swing states.
John Kerry wins Illinois as expected. He wins Connecticut as well as expected. The District of Columbia, there was never any doubt there. New Jersey, a big win for John Kerry.
According to the Washington Post, early evening exit polls pointed to a decisive win for Kerry. Those exit polls showed Kerry holding a lead in states that totaled 309 electoral votes, with Bush's tally totaling 174. After voting sites closed, exit polls being released on the internet showed Kerry ahead, as he had been earlier in the day. During the evening, a discrepancy appeared between the exit polls and the official tallies.
Those exit polls showing a Kerry win in Florida, those exit polls showing perhaps a Kerry win in Ohio, and in several other states that have already been called a Kerry margin very different from what the actual results are showing. So what the Bush campaign believes now is that the exit polls were flawed.
When there's a difference between exit poll data and the vote count, the exit poll company mathematically adjusts the poll numbers
Man, please.
to the official tally.
CNN.com covers
Between 10:30 and 11 p.m., Edison Mitofsky's computer server had gone down, and the exit poll numbers remained unadjusted for several hours. As a result of this temporary unintended freeze, election observers were able to download the unadjusted exit poll numbers, showing Kerry still in the lead.
I went on the CNN website, and lo and behold, there were all these exit polls broken down in all sorts of various demographic ways. And I set about downloading them.
So we're looking at the exit polls, and the exit polls clearly showed that John Kerry carried Ohio, which was enough to give him an election, and Iowa, and Nevada, and New Mexico.
Until 12:21 a.m., Kerry was still leading, according to the exit polls. The first indication that the apparent Democratic victory might not happen as projected had come around midnight, when ABC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News all called Florida for Bush.
And then something happened where the next time it was put on the screen, the percentages and the numbers, it was exactly flipped.
Exit polls developed in the late 1960s for years and years were regarded as very accurate and reliable indicators of how an election would turn out. Exit polls in recent years have become increasingly inaccurate.
Exit polls, before they were adjusted, had pointed toward a Kerry victory. The official vote tally reflected a Bush victory. A 3% decrease for Kerry and a 3% increase for Bush equals a 6% discrepancy in the margin of victory. In the early morning hours, when the backup server reconnected and exit poll adjustments resumed, observers watched a dramatic shift. From that point on, exit polls now mirrored the vote count and projected George Bush as the winner.
People in the room got quiet. It was funny because we were all observing this on our own, but collectively, we knew something wasn't right.
Bush took the lead in the national popular vote as Kerry's projected wins in key states were disappearing.
How did hundreds and hundreds of thousands of votes shift, not in a progressive, incremental way, but in this almost complete, sudden, violent reversal? Remember, at the time these shifts are occurring, the people in lines are overwhelmingly African-American citizens and college students at liberal campuses. If anything, the shift should be going in the other direction.
Very close race, could still go either way. What's the mood there?
Confident, John. The president is thrilled he will be leading the country for the next few years.
It's a little early to say he will be. The numbers really aren't in yet.
Numbers. John, this is not a man who is going to let the numbers stand in the way of moving America forward.
You're muted. You're muted.
Sorry, I've been trying not to make noise while the clip was playing. Yeah, so
I'm talking about this
I think we get the idea there that, there was some real just numbers, comparisons between the exit polls and the actual results that were very strange. And the clip goes on to say that a 6% discrepancy between exit polls and the actual results at that time was really very statistically strange. Now we've gotten to the point where the exit polls are not even respected because they vary from the results so often, so frequently, and nobody will take it seriously anymore. But this was really, I think, one of the first times that we saw that.
Yes, it's awful. Jonathan Simon, like I look at a lot of his analyses. Like those three guys are like some pioneers for election integrity. They are the people that I studied, and it's just phenomenal to see how what they explain now is still what's happening. Like to adjust an exit poll. Like I just want to let me just go. Me and you, let's just go buy $1 million house and let the bank adjust to give us the money that it didn't realize that we didn't have. Like it just doesn't make sense. Like you just can't just have a whole industry working like that and then everybody do something that says you should fire them, and then we just accept the new practice and just go with the new method.
Right. The exit polls that were done with meticulous care and a very specific protocol over the years that had been very, very accurate. And also, and exit polls were what we are still to this day using to see if we think there's election fraud in other countries. So we're still using them in other countries, but here in the U.S. they've been basically completely
switch the numbers. Yeah, we just adjust them.
They simply
made a mistake.
Yeah, they don't match the reported results on a regular basis now. So what I want to play you 2 more clips. That's really interesting because that clip really focused on exit polls, but here I actually have an interview with John Kerry, and he acknowledges that his team was aware that something was happening, or that they suspected that something was happening. So this is an interview that John Kerry did with WNYC, and I heard it. I was in shock when I heard it. And I put it on Twitter, and a lot of people found out about it. And so I'm going to go ahead and just play you this one section of the interview. It's about 16 minutes in.
Thing about that election, and then we'll take a break and move on and take some phone calls too. The ultimate swing state in 2004 was Ohio. And remembering what had happened in Florida in 2000, there was evidence of election irregularities, but you decided not to challenge it. We had a few activists on this program back then who were really angry at you for that. If you had won Ohio, you would have won the presidency, not George W. Bush. What did you know, and why did you decide not to pursue it?
Well, it was obviously a very, very tough decision, and I write about it in the book, and you know, I think about it here and then. But we knew that of the provisional votes that were waiting to be counted or able to be counted, we didn't have the numbers necessary to have the margin according to what they had decided to count, or the way the machines came in. The problem for us was we were doubting whether the machines themselves had been appropriately measured and whether the algorithm was correct. So we challenged that ahead of time, by the way. People don't know that. And we were told by the court that you were not able to get that algorithm to check it because it was proprietary information. And I believe that it was absolutely incorrect that in the United States of America, the election for the presidency of the United States should somehow be the purview of privately owned machines where the public doesn't have the right to know whether the algorithm's been checked or whether they're hackable or not. And we now know they are hackable. But we knew as we sat there to decide where to go in terms of the challenge, that we were a nation at war. We'd just been through a Supreme Court test of an election 4 years earlier. I thought, as I measured it, that whatever constitutional challenge we brought or whatever appropriate challenge we brought to the ballots that were counted, it was going to wind up ultimately in the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court would do the same thing that it did before. We would take the country through a 3-month exercise with a 5-4 decision that would award the presidency back to George Bush. Now, some people may think that's the right thing to have done. I thought it would have been horrendous for our country 1 year into a war, at that moment where there were serious doubts about terrorism and other things, to be going through a long period of questioning who the president is. And I didn't think it was the right thing to do for the nation.
So there you have Kerry saying, you know, they didn't believe the results. They didn't believe it. But one of the things that he talks about there is the proprietary code. They didn't have any way to get in there and prove that there had been a problem. And yet he didn't go to battle. You know, I was one of the people who was fighting at that time. I made a documentary talking about this very issue, that we didn't trust the results in 2004 in Ohio. It would have been incredible if John Kerry's team had come forward and said, hey, this is wrong, that the results, that the code that's counting the results is proprietary, like the Coca-Cola recipe, and we can't know what's in there. It was outrageous.
Yeah, I learned about this story through Jenny Cohn. I didn't believe her when she told me. I was like, no, and then I had to go and see it for myself, because I always knew that you would get hit with the proprietary, but at the highest level for the presidency, I would think, they would have the most high-powered lawyers. They would be able to get past some of those things that you wouldn't get through in those local races. So I couldn't even believe it.
So now I'm going to play you one more clip. So far we talked about exit polls in 2004, and we talked about the proprietary code and how the presidential candidate himself did not believe the results. But now I'm going to show you in the documentary that I made about 2004 Ohio, we actually went and talked to the people, the Green Party, who actually counted the votes in Ohio by hand, and what they found. So now I'm going to play you, this is from my documentary. It's called Holler Back, Not Voting in an American Town. What, Vinny?
I just said holler back.
Holler back, holler back. Okay, and this is just a short part of the clip, because we have a lot of other stuff to get to. And I'm going to go full screen with it. Actually, we have to go back again. Again, and make sure that we get that audio. That is the most important thing. Share the audio. There we go.
Are the elections being rigged?
Yes, our evidence shows that they are.
Evidence like the 2004 presidential recount results in Ohio. Jesse Tendler was a regional coordinator for that recount.
I was in charge of about 10 different counties. Not only was there a discrepancy between the hand recount and the original certified vote, in most cases there was also a discrepancy between the hand recount and the machine recount in every precinct in every county.
That's a little confusing, so let's look at it carefully. In almost every precinct he was involved in, there was a difference between the hand count and the machine count. Here are some of the differences. In Bradford Village, the official certified machine count had 3 votes more than the hand count. In Piqua 2A, the machine count had 8 votes more. Troy 3E, 14 votes more. The machine seems to be adding a small number of votes each time, but could those small changes really have mattered?
The differences are absolutely meaningful differences. Difference of 6 votes per precinct could change the results of the entire election.
So there you have, like, really from start to finish, you have the exit polls not matching, you have the candidates being suspicious.
Say you run an authoritarian government.
And we have a guy talking in the background.
Sorry, I got rid of that now. So you have the exit polls not matching, you have the candidates themselves not trusting the results, and then you have the recount where it shows that the hand count is different from the machine count. And yet they didn't even pay attention to that hand count. They went ahead and just certified the results of the machine count, despite that. So that's 2004 Florida. No, 2004 Ohio. So we did 1994 South Africa, we did 2000 Florida, now we did 2004 Ohio, and I have been giving you these links as we go along. I did put into the chat the link to Dorothy Fadiman's entire documentary. That one is called Stealing America Vote by Vote, and I also put the link into the interview with John Kerry with WNYC. That was Brian Lehrer, and now I'm putting into the chat the documentary film that I made. It's called Holler Back, Not Voting in an American Town. And that's where you'll find that information about the count not matching, the actual hand count. And that includes 2004 Ohio recount. But go to the film clips if you want to see just that one section. Okay, so now we're going to move on and see. I'm going to just sort of keep banging through these. We did have some good comments here. I like this comment.
Yeah.
just get into the comments. I like this comment. This is from Harvey. He said election quality. That's Harvey Branscombe. At this point, there is no longer a single EL, or EI, which is usually election integrity community that has a uniform bias. There are several, perhaps many such communities. They are all increasingly active. Each has some bias and intention. Benny's not going to agree with that.
Yeah, that's why we do this show.
Right. To just try to show you across the spectrum that, you know, there's a lot of things going on, and you just have to really try as hard as possible to be objective and try to look at the data, try to look at the evidence and see what that's showing you. And that's why it's important to have transparency and have lots of eyes on ballots and things like that. So we're going to move now to 2008 New Hampshire, and I'm just going to show you one picture here and make sure that I have it. This one is a little bit blurry because it's a pretty old picture. But in 2008, there was a lot of controversy about the primary in New Hampshire. I don't know if you guys remember this far back, but Obama won the primary in Iowa. He beat Hillary Clinton, surprise, shock win. And then they went on to New Hampshire. He was ahead in the polls in New Hampshire by, I heard, anywhere from, I think, 10 to 13%. And yet he lost the election to Clinton in New Hampshire. And I'll never forget, even Clinton herself, you could tell she was surprised when she won. She came out on the stage and she went, "Thank you, New Hampshire." And she looks shocked. And so there was a recount, a hand recount that was paid for actually by Dennis Kucinich. And what it found was in multiple counties, the hand count did not match the machine count. And so what I'm going to show you is a document that was put out by the Secretary of State of New Hampshire. And again, I'm going to try to blow this up pretty big, but what you're seeing here is the counties on the left, and you're seeing all the discrepancies. And I'm going to take it all the way. I'm going to see if I can take it all the way up to the top. So you can see there, it says New Hampshire primary recount. And the first column is Clinton, the machine, and then the recount, the totals. And then you have Edwards, you have the recount, and you have the original machine count and the recount. And the little numbers next to it are how far off they were. So you can see in that first county, it's Clinton had 7 less, Edwards had 3 more, and Obama had 1 less. And I'm going to try to blow this up a little bit so you can really kind of see it a little bit better. But as you go down, you'll see that these numbers, they weren't all small. You get into counties, Manchester Ward 5, Clinton had 64 fewer votes, Edwards had 38 fewer votes, and Obama had 39 fewer votes. And then you get down to this county, Nashua. I don't know how they say this, Nashua. And it was the same thing where the candidates lost quite a few votes when you get into the hand count. And, you know, these discrepancies were explained. They did research and they went into, they went into it in the press, and they talked about what happened was the clerks had double counted some of the votes the first time. And they said, oh, we would have caught that when we went back and did the recanvass. They had counted the write-in votes and the original votes. So they had wound up sort of double counting presidential votes in both of those big counties. But you can look at these other counties. There's just like county after county after county. It's like +9, +4, +2, +7, -3, +2. These are not accurate counts, these voting machines. And even the hand count town was off. This is what's crazy. You go to Wilton. Wilton is one of the most famous hand count towns in New Hampshire. They count all their ballots by hand. And you can see in the first count, they had 286 votes for Obama. But when they did the recount, there were 100 ballots less for Obama. And I heard from them, this is because they count their ballots in batches of 50, and then they sit on them to try to make sure that they don't count the batch twice. but apparently somebody wasn't sitting on their ballots. And so they think 2 batches of ballots got counted twice the first time. This is why we do audits. This is why we check whether it's a hand count or a machine count. We have to check the results.
Every vote counts until it doesn't.
Right. I mean, some of these races are very, very close. So now we're going to get to 2012. We've been going through. Now we're in Shelby County, Tennessee, and we're going to show the poll tape that Benny actually discovered. And again, I'm just checking that I have it up here. The poll tape that Benny actually, the photograph that he took personally.
That's 2015, though.
Oh, it was 2015?
Yeah, it's 2015.
Oh, let me fix that. I'm so sorry.
I'm
I got that date wrong.
I'm a lot newer than 2012.
Okay, 2015, we fixed that. And I know we had questions in the chat. I saw Marta wanted to know when that interview with John Kerry was. And
it was recent, right? It
wasn't that recent.
2018,
it was 2018, September 6, 2018. So just to throw that out there. So Benny, do you want to start telling about, and I think, we just have a few minutes and some
you can put it up. And
I'll put it up, and why don't you go ahead and start telling the story?
I mean, we can explain it just like we do the others. I took a picture of a poll tape just when I figured out that the elections had problems, and I just snapped some empirical evidence. I took my BlackBerry, I took a screenshot of the polls, and just captured the record as close to the commit when they committed the returns, and it showed that 548 people participated, but when it was tabulated, those same 548 people were represented as 330, and all the candidates' totals was impacted directionally to show the loss, and that was just awful.
Right, you can really see there, Harold Collins initially in the polling location had 175 votes, and his totals went down to 106. Jim Strickland went from 88 to 51. A.C. Wharton went from 162 to 102, and Mike Williams went from 111 to 64. And this was a predominantly African-American precinct where these votes were lost.
Yeah, and the winner, Jim Strickland, he lost 30 votes, but everybody else lost 60 collectively. So they lost double their votes, and he lost a small portion of it. So scratches that part of your head to say what's going on here.
And what did they ever find out what the problem was there, Benny? And it wasn't just in that precinct. We've covered this before, 4 to 20 precincts where the totals were wrong.
Yeah, there were what was described as a memory card from that precinct that had the rest of the vote totals, and it reported that the memory card was uploaded and the results were transferred, although the memory card had not transferred any totals. So if you imagine there were 10 memory cards, 2 they were printed out in the polling place, but when they were aggregated at the local election command center, those same 2 cards didn't show the totals.
So
there was a known flaw from that takes us to 2004 from Ohio, because we were using the same software that they were using in 2004 that had the same problem that Shelby County experienced in 2015.
So you're saying that the problem in 2004 in Ohio and the problem in 2015 in Memphis could have been related?
Yeah, they are definitely related. They're not in start to finish, but there is definitely something about the software, because it was the same software, same manufacturer, same package, same build, same software ID number. So if they were running version 22, we were running version 22, and that same glitch exists in Shelby County, and we still have that same problem now.
That's the same voting machines that you're still voting on.
Yep.
Right. All these years later, this is still 6 years after you took that first photograph of the poll tape. You're still voting on the same voting machines.
That's correct.
Yeah. And I'll go ahead and put up some, we like to have a vibrant dialogue here. So this is Kelly Lane, who also has been very active in the election security.
We love
website for Harvey Branscombe. I have to respectfully disagree. As an independent, more green than anything, I do have bias. I do not have bias for Democrat or Republican. And I think there are a lot of people who feel that, yeah, the Democrats get the short end of the stick. Sometimes the Republicans get the short end of the stick, but the independents always seem to get the short end of the stick. And there's many of us who find that very concerning and are very concerned about the primaries and what goes on in the primaries and whether or not those are particularly susceptible to mistakes or manipulation. It's definitely a very serious concern.
Yeah,
So
you can follow, like we follow Kelly. Like I've participated in some of her live events. You somehow you kind of gotta have to follow us and see some of us really keep it in the middle. But there are political leanings in nearly everything, so it does shape how some people see problems.
Kelly, go ahead and put your Twitter tag into the comments, and we'll put that up there in case people want to follow you. Kelly's involved in all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
So I totally check her out and see if any of those issues are issues that you're passionate about. We just got 5 minutes left here. So we're 2015. I want to go to 2016 now, and I believe that I had pulled up this data. Initially, I had some technical problems, so I'm not sure. Let me see if I can pull it up again. So this was, oh yeah, I have a bunch of these links up over here. So we're going to kind of bang through some of these. These are research. This is when Benny and I first met, and we started looking at these races. And one of the first ones that we looked at was the 2016 race in Broward County, Florida. And this was a congressional race between Tim Canova and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who at the time was the head of the DNC.
DNC and head of the DNC.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna let's see. I'm gonna see if I can pull.
He
this
had
up
been
over
ousted
here.
from the DNC and was very unpopular.
That's true, but she still won this election.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's going to let me share on Firefox. Let me see if I'm going to be able to share this window because I have it on my other. I have it on a different browser. Let's see if it's going to let me share this. Yeah, I can share this. Awesome. Okay, great. So what you're going to see here. And Benny was part of the research team that did this. We meticulously compared the data in each precinct, broken down by category, and we compared the number of voters who voted with the number of ballots that were cast. And in almost every single precinct, those numbers did not match. And it was kind of crazy how far off they were. So I'm going to show you this. Again, this is 2016, and this is a congressional race in Florida. I believe I have a banner for that. Okay, so you can see all the precincts are listed on the left. You can see the voters who voted. That's one column, and then you can see the cast ballots. And you can see, like just in that first precinct there, it's off by 20 more ballots than voters.
Yeah.
Keep in mind what that means. There should never be more ballots than voters because your voter casts a ballot. Where are those ballots coming from if there are more ballots than voters? You should never have more ballots than voters. Sometimes you have less ballots than voters. That's normal. People don't always complete the process, but more, very strange. And if you have too often less ballots than voters, that can also be concerning. So I'm going to scroll down and you're just going to see these numbers. Keep your eye on this column right here. This column, roll it back up so you can see the top of it. The column that says more ballots than voters. You see that column right there? Keep your eye on that column as I scroll down. And you can just see 22, 16, 24, 12, 22, 16, 13, 20, 10. Get all the way down to and there's a lot of precincts. This is a big county, Broward County. There were 971 more ballots than voters in that race. Only 19 of the precincts out of 211 precincts had the same number of voters as ballots. So that was 2016. And then, I mean, we did so much. This was when Benny and I started working together, and we did a lot of research at that time. We also looked into the 2018 race. That was again a congressional race. And here, what was so bizarre about this race was there was just no data published by the county. And there was like this weird little rule that allowed them to do this. But in precinct after precinct, you could see that there were votes cast, but they wouldn't tell you where the votes were coming from. So you see that box, that red box, it shows you that votes are cast, but you can see they're not telling you where the election day, vote by mail, early votes, provisional votes. And I'm again going to scroll down this document, and you're just going to see how in precinct after precinct after precinct, there were ballots that just, there were votes that just seemed to come out of nowhere. And we actually have another document that it was a video that Benny took. And that video, you can see, I believe there were 100,000 votes.
Some thousand votes, yeah.
100,000 votes for Debbie Wasserman Schultz that had absolutely no data.
Way of knowing how they came in. I think Tim Canova went on Fox and said it's like saying 0 + 0 + 0 + 0 = 26, and it just doesn't make any sense.
That's very concerning. And then we're out of time here, but I'm going to just do one more for you. And this one is in Texas again in 2018. And and this was a race that Laura Presley covered. Again, another longtime election security advocate. And this was just one of the anomalies they found. They did this detailed analysis of tens of thousands of lines of an audit log that they got through a public records request. And again, they found more cast ballots than voters. This was in Dallas, Texas in the 2018 primary. And I'll put some of these links into the chat for you. Let's see, starting with this, I believe, let me see if I can get that link for the Broward County data. I can share that. All of this is on the internet. Link. So this is, I'm going to put these links into the chat. Again, so if you want to follow up and read these full documents on your own, the information is there. So this was 2016, Broward County, Florida. And this was a document that showed more ballots cast than voters who voted. And I'll put up two other articles. They were Truth Out articles. We were published in Truth Out, a great publication. And Benny and I both worked on that research, as I said. So this is the 2018, again, Broward County, Florida article from Truth Out. And this is the, I believe, the 2018 article about Texas, also from Truth Out. So you have those two articles. I wanted to do one more, but we're really out of time.
I'll get it in.
Get it in. You have any thoughts so far right now, Benny, on the various ones that we've shown so far?
I think this is really good. I mean, this is stuff that we know we worked on ourselves. So these are problems. There's no explanation outside of there is a problem. So this is really good for people to go and see that this isn't something that we just think can happen. This stuff we've been documenting. And that was a Senate race. That was Beto O'Rourke when he ran for Senate. So that was a serious race.
Oh, it was Senate. I thought it was congressional. Wasn't he running for Congress at that time?
He was running for Senate, wasn't he?
I'd have to go back and check. I thought originally he ran for Congress, and then later he ran for Senate. I think it was congressional to begin with.
President.
I think we should call it a day, and then I'll come back and I'll play that clip for you. Come back and talk to us some more. So yeah, so let me tell you what's coming up next. Oh, and we didn't do our fundraising stuff or anything. So first off, if you love us, please, 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 please.
Write a big check and we'll give you a shout out on the monitors. Somebody DM me and ask me, do the monitors actually does everything go with the monitors? Write her a big check and then we'll put your name on the screen back and give you a shout out.
It's not for me, it's for Smart Elections, but we really, really
a big check.
could use the help. If you like what we're doing, please do donate, or encourage your friends, or if you know of foundations that you think we might be right for, then go ahead and let us know about those. And we did get a great donation today. I have to say thank you very much to someone, but I don't want to say her name, but thank you to the person who gave us a very good donation today. And so I put that link into the chat to please donate, and please sign up for our next forum. It's going to be wonderful. So on September 21st, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we are going to have voters with disabilities telling their stories, the challenges that they've been through, what it's taken for them to be able to vote, and what it's like when they vote, when they really have a victory and they are able to vote, how they feel, and when they are unable to vote or really struggle. And I really encourage you to come back for that, and that is on September 21st, and we have the link for you. The link is always the same to sign up, so this is sign up. Look, typos, that's because I type all these up so fast, but I think that would be a T actually. And September 21st, and here's the link. Please sign up. You can sign up for as many as 5 at a time. 5 forums at a time. We do them every 2 weeks on Tuesdays. And this is sign up for 921 forum. And there we go. And the other thing that you can remember to do is to please share when we tweet and when we put stuff on Facebook. We are on all kinds of different social media channels, TikTok and Instagram. And please, please do share our posts. You are our publicity machine. And we really rely on you to get the word out if you think that this is important information. Will you share some of today's links on the website?
Are they in the YouTube comments?
Yeah, so all you have to do when you're watching, go to the YouTube. The link is always the same. The link that you watch this show at, it's archived at this link. So you can go to this YouTube video at any time, and as you're going through, just get the chat on and it'll show you these links. We've put them all into the chat for you. There isn't really space on the website for us to put all of these links. And we'll just go out on this. This is really nice. We appreciate this. Thanks, Lulu and Benny. Yes, you two do a good job of remaining nonpartisan in a very partisan world. That means a lot to us. We really do our best here.
Yes.
Okay. So thanks so much. We're going to say good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.
And we want you to remember that
this
is what democracy looks like.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.